Short and long questions with key points for the last lesson. Short questions with points. 1. Why was Franz reluctant to go to school that day? Avoiding punishment. Franz was worried about being scolded because he hadn't learned his French lesson. Tempted by nature, the warm weather outside made him want to skip school and enjoy the outdoors. 2. What was unusual about the school environment that day? Uncommon quietness. The usually noisy school was very quiet, creating an unusually solemn atmosphere. Presence of villagers. The attendance of village elders in the classroom added to the seriousness of the occasion. 3. What announcement did M. Hamel make in the classroom? Last lesson in French. He announced that it would be the last French lesson as only German would be taught henceforth due to the new orders from Berlin. Cultural loss. This was a significant moment marking the loss of language and culture. 4. How did M. Hamel react to Franz's late arrival to school? Uncharacteristic kindness. Instead of scolding him, M. Hamel invited Franz in calmly, showing patience and understanding. Reflection of situation's gravity. His reaction was a reflection of the emotional weight of the last lesson. 5. Why did the villagers attend the last lesson? Show of solidarity and regret. They came to show their respect for M. Hamel and regret not having valued their language enough. Patriotic gesture. Their presence indicated a shared sense of loss and patriotism. 6. How does M. Hamel explain the importance of language to the class? Identity and heritage. He explained that language is a critical part of one's cultural identity and heritage. Resistance against oppression. Maintaining their language was essential for retaining their identity and resisting domination. 7. What change did Franz notice in himself during the last lesson? Increased interest in learning. Franz, who usually disliked French, began to feel a deep interest and regret for not studying it better. Emotional realization. He realized the value of the language and felt a strong emotional connection to it. 8. What were M. Hamel's feelings about his profession and his country? Mixed emotions of pride and regret. M. Hamel felt proud of being a French teacher but regretted not having been stricter and more diligent. Deep patriotism. He demonstrated a profound love for France and sorrow over the loss of cultural independence. 9. How did M. Hamel conclude the last lesson? Emotional end. He was visibly emotional and wrote, "Vive la France," on the blackboard, signifying his love for France. Silent farewell. His silence after writing on the blackboard marked a poignant end to the lesson. 10. What does the phrase, "Vive la France," symbolize at the end of the lesson? Patriotic sentiment. It symbolizes a strong patriotic feeling and pride in French culture. Resistance and hope. The phrase is a call for resistance against cultural oppression and a hope for the future. Long questions with points. 1. What is the significance of the title, "The Last Lesson"? End of an era, represents the final lesson in French and the imposition of German, marking the end of a cultural era for the people of Alsace and Lorraine. Emotional and cultural impact. Symbolizes the sudden realization and regret among the villagers and students for not learning their language earlier. Reflects a deeper loss of cultural identity. Resistance through language. The lesson becomes a symbol of resistance against cultural assimilation, highlighting the importance of language in maintaining cultural integrity. 2. How does M. Hamel's attitude towards teaching change in the story? From strict to compassionate. Initially portrayed as a strict teacher, M. Hamel's demeanor softens during the last lesson. He shows patience and understanding, underscoring his deep affection for the French language. Sense of regret. M. Hamel regrets not pushing his students harder and reflects on his own failings, which adds a layer of introspection and regret. Patriotism and dedication. His final lesson is delivered with passion, emphasizing the importance of the French language and his dedication to his role as an educator. 3. Discuss the theme of linguistic chauvinism in the last lesson. Definition and example. Linguistic chauvinism is the belief in the superiority of one language over others. In the story, this is seen in the imposition of German over French by the Prussian authorities. Colonial oppression. The enforcement of German in schools represents a form of cultural dominance, aiming to erase the native language and culture. Resistance and identity. The story highlights how language can become a form of resistance, with the last lesson symbolizing a fight to retain cultural identity and heritage. 4. How does Franz's perception of M. Hamel and his lessons change over the course of the story? Initial indifference and fear. Franz initially dislikes going to school and fears M. Hamel for his strictness. Growing awareness and regret. As he realizes that this is the last lesson, Franz regrets not taking his studies seriously and begins to understand the true value of the French language. Respect and admiration. By the end, Franz's perception shifts to one of respect and admiration for M. Hamel, recognizing him as a dedicated teacher who loves his country and language. 5. What role do the villages play in the story, and what does their presence signify? Unexpected attendance as a symbol. The villages' presence in the classroom signifies their recognition of the importance of the French language, which they had previously neglected. Collective resistance. Their attendance at the last lesson represents a form of collective resistance against cultural erasure and a show of solidarity. Cultural awakening. Their participation reflects a broader cultural awakening and a realization of the importance of preserving one's language and heritage.